All right, we're here at Super Bowl 58. We're in Radio Row, Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm excited because I get to talk to a friend of mine. He hasn't been on the show yet. I've known him a long time, Nick Ferguson, 10-year veteran in the NFL, working with the Broncos, doing some broadcasting as well, right?
Absolutely.
Nick Ferguson, what's up, my man?
What's going on, man?
It's so good to see you. You got to tell everybody listening, like, how we even came about, because it goes way back. And I remember you were a hustler. You wanted to get into this business, so I love seeing that God has blessed you this way. But tell everybody about how we first met.
All right, so very interesting story. The NFL will put on these broadcast boot camps.
That's right.
At Mount Laurel, New Jersey. At NFL Films,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
So I'm going in there. I don't know too much about broadcasting, but I just feel this burning desire to get involved in this industry that I said I would never get involved with, because the New York media playing for the Jets, they burned me.
Yeah,
right.
I don't
and
doubt
it was just like, well,
yeah.
I don't want anything to do with the media. They are the devil. They say all the negative things about players. Lo and behold, I was drawn to it.
Yeah.
Right? Because I wanted to help change some of the narratives. And I walk in, there's this guy with this bright smile. He's full of life. And I'm like, I gotta know him. I gotta know him. And, I mean, you were so open, man, and you were so informative as far as telling guys, not just myself, what we need to do to kind of get into this business.
A very hard business to get into.
Very hard, very competitive, and move our careers along. So I am forever grateful for you giving of your time in the moment where you didn't have to, just kind of to talk to myself and other guys who were trying to break into the business.
Yeah, I love those. Those years are fun years for me, too, because it was people like Jerry Madelon, people like James Brown, JB from CBS Sports, so many wonderful people that really allowed me to even enter and become an instructor. And then to meet people like you and to stay friends with you and to be able to watch your career blossom has been fun. Let's start with what you're doing right now. This past year, you did some work with the Broncos, right?
Yeah, I did. The Broncos, believe it or not, they have their own television network, both TV and radio. So I started doing some broadcasting with them. And then I was asked if I wanted to be an in-game host. I had never done anything like that before, and like
so these are let's explain what this is. This is while the game's going on.
While the game is going on,
they give you a mic, and you're on the jumbotrons and all that, kind of hosting the game, right?
And you know what? When they first came to me and asked me this, I said, "Well, you know what you're doing, right? You're actually giving me a mic, right? I don't know if you want to do that, but it's been
very careful.
Be very careful. It's been amazing. I've been able to reconnect with fans who saw me play, and just being there on the field with the players. I get a chance to work with a guy that I idolized as a kid growing up, in Steve Atwater.
Oh, yeah.
And he's such a humble guy, and I try not to fanboy a lot, but it's hard. It's Steve Atwater.
Yeah.
And he's like, Nick, don't do that. But I'm like, man, I grew up watching you. I remember I told him this story. I said, that the hit with Christian Okoye, everyone remembers that particular play.
Yeah.
I said, well, that night, my mom told me to go to sleep, right? Because I had to get up early that next day. So when she went in her room, I closed the door, put a towel underneath the door so she couldn't see the light, and I turned the volume down. And I was awake to see that play. Now, I paid for it that next morning because I was dead tired, but it was one of those moments that you just wanted to make sure that you saw, and I shared that with Steve. But it's been amazing being a part of the organization in this particular way, staying engaged and being able to talk to players, but more importantly, being able to tell their story. Not me giving my perspective, but tell the story from a player's standpoint. And when I think about some of the media and how it's turned a little toxic, I don't like it. I don't like the hot takes. I don't like the clickbait. The idea is talk about the players, what they're doing. And this is something JB told me at the boot camp. He said, talk about the play, not the player, right? And never make it personal.
Yeah, remember GMAT would say, Jerry Madelon, criticize the performance, not the performer.
Yes,
because so many guys make it personal, and then it just creates this chasm.
A lot of friction, and there are a lot of members in the Denver media who are a little upset with me because I'm granted a little more access because I treat the players like players, right? And that makes them gravitate more towards me, man. So this is something I never thought in a million years I would be doing. And if you told me that very first day, walking into broadcast boot camp, that things that are happening to me now would happen, I would have said, no, you're out of your mind.
Well, that's what I was going to say, because, we talk about faith on this show a lot, and you talk about the plan God has for our lives, and you think about where we were a decade or more ago.
Yeah.
It had to be more than a decade ago,
Absolutely.
maybe 2012,
Yeah.
when we were first meeting and hanging out. And to think about, at that time, you were just trying to figure out, how can I get my foot in the door? How can I get opportunity after opportunity? And you use social media and you create your own content. And you're waiting for a break. If I'd have told you in 2012, you're going to get your opportunity, Nick, it's going to look a little different, which is kind of how God works, right, with our plans.
Yes.
He always takes it in a little bit different perspective. To see where you are today, you probably would have signed up for that, but you also probably would have said that's not going to happen.
Well, you know what? It's funny that you said that, because I always make this joke. If I had a time machine and I went back and spoke to my younger self growing up in the inner city of Miami, and I said, look, hey, I know things look difficult now, but they're going to work out for you, right? Just trust me, they're going to work out for you. And speaking of faith, man, it's something that forever changed my life. And it started with the altercation between me and my siblings in a house during the summer. And I kind of got into a tidbit with 3 of my siblings, and I left the house. And I'm like, I'm not going to go back until my mom came home. And it was one of those moments where I had time to reflect. I looked up in the sky and I said, well, why did you put me in this situation with this particular family, knowing as how difficult it is to make it out of the inner city? No one ever spoke back. So I asked the question again, and I said, you know what? Maybe that's God telling me he wants me to figure it out myself, right? And ever since that moment, I say, look, I'm going to set my life on a path where I never do anything wrong that will take away from the possibility that's down the road. And I constantly live my life in that way, not drinking, not doing drugs, not doing anything that can jeopardize me and take my future away. And that's why when I look at my kids, I say, as when I was growing up, I didn't have all the freedoms that you guys have. But I found the way, and it was by making the right decision. And we all are God's creatures, and we have the ability of free will. I said to my kids, even when you don't make a decision, you've already made one, whether you know it or not. So that's why I wanted to live my life on the up and up. And once again, with this program, when it was introduced to me, I was like, I got to be a part of it. And then over the years, I was able to introduce it to Marshall Falk. So now both he and I are doing it. And the last time the 49ers played Kansas City in the Super Bowl was in Miami.
Yeah, we were there.
Yes. And Marshall went to my school. We talked to about 3,000 kids about this very thing, had them to sign a pledge. But my story is a very interesting one. You don't play a decade in the league being an undrafted player. And for me, I didn't do that by myself.
Right.
I didn't do that by myself.
Yeah, that was help from the Lord, help from so many other people in your life along the way. Yeah, it's really interesting. There aren't many undrafted free agents. The first guy that comes to my mind is like Tony Romo, who I think he got 10 years or maybe even 12 years in the league. But there aren't many other guys that get a decade in the league as an undrafted free agent. You're behind the 8 ball the second you sign that contract, and you don't know what's going to happen, and you were able to make it a decade, man.
Yeah, awesome. And one thing about it is that it follows you too. Just like those guys who are drafted in the first round, they continue to get opportunity after opportunity, even though their play doesn't dictate it, and it's all based on they were taken in the first round.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, because of the opportunity they had right away. That's why so many guys say, even I was talking to some guys about Brock Purdy recently, 49ers quarterback, and there were moments where he could have just said, okay, I'm not going to get drafted, Mr. Irrelevant, and I'll sign. And they said, no, you want to be drafted. Like you want to get drafted. Even if it's 7th round last pick, you want to get drafted because it puts you so behind the 8 ball if you're an undrafted free agent.
You know what? Here's one thing interesting about Brock Purdy really quickly is that the fact that he is Mr. Irrelevant. For every other guy that was Mr. Irrelevant, it worked against them. But this is an opportunity where it works for him. And it also opens the doors for other guys, because usually the idea is that you got to take a quarterback in the first round. History is showing that No, you don't.
Well, I mean, the greatest quarterback of all time was taken in the 6th round.
Yes.
The starting quarterback in the NFC this year was taken in the 7th round. It doesn't always have to be the number 1 overall pick. Sometimes it is.
Right.
Peyton Manning, and that worked out.
Right.
But sometimes you can get guys later on.
Well, I mean, think about Jalen Hurts. He wasn't taken in the 1st round.
2nd round guy.
Second round guy.
Yeah.
So it's about the guy, his skill set, but more importantly, if you as an offensive coordinator look at the guy's skills, cater your offense around him instead of saying I'm going to force you into my system.
Yeah,
that's kind of one of the most illogical things I've ever heard.
Real quick, tell us about Foundation for a Drug-Free World. You mentioned Marshall Falk, and the program that you're behind with this is so important. I think it's awesome, and that's why we wanted to make sure we had you on. Holding a little pamphlet here, The Truth About Drugs. Why is this so important to you to get behind?
Well, I mean, in my neighborhood growing up, I've seen family members use drugs. Family members die of drugs. Yeah. So for me, it kind of resonated with me, and how could I make somewhat of a change? And fentanyl is kind of destroying our country as a whole.
Oh my gosh, is it ever?
Yes. Yeah. So the idea is kind of giving back information that even younger kids can absorb and take out when they go out amongst, people and they're away from their families. So it's just me trying to do my part, Marshall trying to do our part to bring balance, if you will, to everything that's going on. And the only way you can do it is through education and awareness.
Right.
So, and it's free program. That's the great thing about it.
100% free.
100% free. Like the guys who have football camps, like Roquan Smith last summer, went to his football camp, distributed information, actually teaching them how to educate people themselves. So now each person can carry it on themselves. So it's an awesome program. It's drugfreeworld.org.
That's right. I was just going to say that. Drugfreeworld.org is the website. He is Nick Ferguson. Thanks so much for being here. Great to reconnect with you, brother, and I can't wait to have you back on again. Let's talk some more.
Faith, family, and football.
I love it, my friend. Good to see you.